this is what you're going to see when you first log in. You're going to see this screen without any projects or anything. So you're going to click on this guy right here. Anytime you see this icon, that just means that there's a hidden menu. So anytime you click on it, it's going to pop up, open that menu. So now that we have this menu open, what you want to do is click on here, right here where it says new database, click on that guy. And then by default, it's select to connect, which means if you have any previous databases that you want to connect, you can click this button and it will do that. But in this case, we want to create a database. So we're going to click on this guy right here, and disk is already selected. So give it a name. What you want to do is just call it 4 terabyte underscore DaVinci Resolve DR underscore DB database. And then location, you click on this guy, it'll pop it open, and then you select where you want to save that. So you want to make sure that you give it a folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here, and then I'm just going to call it DaVinci Resolve Database DB. You can call it whatever you want. Once I do that, I click create, and look at this. It's perfect. So right here, just like Premiere, you can do a list view or you can do a thumbnail view. So let's just do a thumbnail view. And then what we want to do is just double click on this guy and you will be logged in. So just a standard practice, the first thing I do is I do Command S. I do a Command S so I can save the project so I don't lose anything. Hit save, done, is saved. The thing that you need to know about DaVinci Resolve is that it might come off as like one of the hardest softwares, but it's not. So don't get intimidated by this part. Let me take you through a couple of things and show you what I mean. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this setup button right here. We're going to open up this cogwheel. And now let's just go through this. What I want to do is I don't want to spend any time on taking you through menus one by one. I only want to call out things that are important and that you have to worry about. Again, guys, I'm making this crash course for someone who is a beginner, maybe intermediate, and kind of getting into it and just want to get a grasp on how to get going, okay? Like if tomorrow you land a documentary job or something like that, short film, you'll be confident enough to take that, color it, export it. That's the point of this, okay? So when you open this up, you have timeline format, leave it as is, because when you bring in your first clip, that's going to dictate what the timeline is going to be. So that's a critical thing when you're bringing in your clips. I would highly recommend bringing in your ACAM first, so you don't have to, make these changes later on or have your timeline set to 60 frames or something like that if you bring in, let's just say, GoPro first, okay? So now that that's clear, this is going to be taken care of automatically. So is this portion, video monitoring. Like when you have an external monitor and it's hooked up, it's smart enough to detect, whatever format it needs to be to give you a proper playbacks. Optimized media is set to perfect settings. A lot of the times, if you're working with red footage and you don't have Red Rocket, you might have to depend on optimized media. And these settings are perfect and they're chosen automatically, meaning that what the quality needs to be per clip. If it's an 8K footage and you have an older computer, it might take the liberty and make that footage 16th, let's say, to give you a proper playback. So working folders, when we created our database, these things are set up. They're taken care of by the database. So once again, no worries. Don't have to worry about that. Frame interpolation, leave it as is. Let's move on. Image scaling. Image scaling, it's set up perfectly. No need to worry about any of that. It's perfect. You're going to plug in your footage, and if you have an output monitor, everything is going to look fine. You're good. Moving on. Color management. Color management is set to Rec 709. Rec 709 is what you need. You don't need to mess with that. Leave it as is. Dolby Vision, you don't have to mess with that. HDR10, same thing. Going down, you don't have to mess with any of that. So we're done with 3 different menus so far. Moving along, now we're under general options. Leave this whole thing as is, leave this as is. Let's go down here and look at it. You don't have to worry about any of that. Everything is looking good. This is great. Leave it as is. Moving on, camera raw. Camera raw, you don't have to worry about it unless you're plugging in your footage from different cameras that shoot raw. And then even then, it's set to proper settings, like, it's optimized for good playback, so you don't have to worry about that. Capture and playback is set to give you optimized performance, so leave that as is. Everything is set up, and once again, when we set up our capture and playback, you can browse and set this to something else. If not, it's going to go to, when you set up the database, all these folders are set up automatically. Okay, Fairlight, don't worry about that. We're good. So we just went through a whole project setting menu, and it was just that easy. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Don't get intimidated. If there's anything that I need to call out, I will call out. So we just went through project settings. So now these are preferences. So let's open this up, and what's in here? We got system preferences. We got user preferences. Let's just go through system preferences really quick, and let me take you through and show you what we got going on over here. So we got memory configuration. Just give it the most juice that you can. When it comes to GPU configuration, the best setting that I found is auto. Leave it on auto, let it do its thing, okay? Okay, so media storage is kind of important. This is where all the stills are going to be saved and all your cache files. So this is one thing where you have to take action and just find the proper hard drive that's the fastest, has the most space, and then add a folder in there. Moving on, decode options, leave it as is. Video and audio IO, this is gonna be set up automatically. If it's not, and if you have Blackmagic's card, you can select it right here. If it's set to none, just click on that guy. You should be ready to go. In my case, it already detected it, so I don't have to worry about that. Speaker setup, you just set it to use system settings, and then you can just go right here and you can select whatever you want right within here, and it will work like a charm. Let's go to audio plugins. You don't have to worry about any of that. If you're bringing in your own plugins, just make sure they're turned on right here, just like mine. These are all control panel. That's one thing that unless you have a Blackmagic's panel, you might have to manually select your panel, and they have a bunch of different choices. So just once you find your panel, click on it and you will be ready to go. General, make sure that use 10-bit precision is off, because if you have this on, it's going to throw your screen off and the colors are going to look funky if you're just grading off of your GUI screen. So make sure that that option is turned off, okay? Use Mac display color profiles. Again, leave that off too. I mean, I have like weird experiences with that, so I just leave that off. Automatically check for updates. Definitely turn that on. This is a brand new feature and it's epic. So basically you can go in here now and check for updates and update within Resolve. Before you had to go to their website, download it, blah, blah, blah. Now they added that feature, $1 million feature. I absolutely love it. And then internet accounts, same thing as Premiere, Final Cut 10, just sign in. And then if you want to upload directly to these websites, you can do that. Now let's go through user settings. UI settings, leave it as is, everything is great. Project save and load. And this is one thing that I'm going to tell you, very, very, very important. By default, DaVinci Resolve has live save setup, just like people who are coming from Final Cut 10, they know what that means. Don't do that. I lost 3 days worth of work. The project somehow got corrupted and there was no way to revive it. I did everything that I could. I contacted Blackmagic. They couldn't help me. So I do not recommend that for now. Maybe when the full release happens, maybe, I don't know. What happened to me, I'm not going to be trusting it for the next couple of years. So I use project backups. This way, you can browse here and select where you want to drop these backups. So right now, I already selected a folder. You can go ahead and pick your own folder if you don't want it on the same drive where the project and everything is saved. Because if you're wondering what if something happens to that drive, then that's a smart idea. You can pick a different drive, a backup drive, and then save your backups there. So then you have multiple places where your stuff is saved. Let's go to editing. These are great. So you can set up certain things. If you start off with like 4 video tracks and 8 audio tracks, you can set that up here. So as soon as you create a timeline, it's going to come with that. Okay. I leave mine as is. So you can change these settings, default handles length, blah, blah, blah. Go through these and change them if you like. I leave it as is. Let's go to color menu. You're going to leave all of this as is. Fairlight, same thing. Playback settings, automatic is the best. Let Resolve figure it out. This is where if you have a control panel and you can change the intensity and make them ultra sensitive. So then anytime you touch something, it takes you there really fast. I personally don't really use this because I feel like color grading is all about that fine tuning. So I don't want anything to happen really fast. I want that micro adjustment control. So I leave it as is. We're all good. We're ready to go. It took us no time to go through this menu, and this is what I'm talking about. Resolve is that easy. All right, so this is what we're bringing in, and that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to pick a few shots from this, and we're going to color it. This was shot on Sony a6500 in natural conditions. And the reason why I picked this is most of the beginners and some intermediate colorists out there are not necessarily working with high-end Alexa Mini red footage. So I wanted to have level playing field. What I'm about to show you right now, this is where you grab your notebook and take some notes, because this is the golden nugget. Most of the commercials and things that I work on, this is the technique they're using in the industry right now. A lot of people are using this process called bake and blade. And what that is that you ask your editorial team, once the picture is locked, I ask the editor to strip off all the effects and all the crossfades and everything from the footage in Premiere, and then output just a clean image as a single file. So what you do is you right click on the footage in here and you say scene cut detection. Okay, this is the gold right here. The other process is really, really hard, and that's why a lot of the companies they will go through a finishing house and send the footage over and then give the finishing house an additional day or two to conform everything before grading, because that process takes a while. You have to pretty much manually recreate all the effects in Resolve, match the time ramps and the repos, and then start grading. And there is still a chance that something might go wrong. So what you need to do here is super simple. Auto scene detect, click on this guy, sit back, sip on your coffee while it's done. So basically Resolve went ahead and added cuts wherever the next shot came in. Anytime you see 3 of one shot, that's not good. So what you need to do is this guy right here. You need to hit delete to remove that. That's not good. Or you can hit the minus key, what I'm going to do in this case. So minus, it's gone. Okay. And then if you want to go next, you can just hit N. If you want to go back, you can just hit P. It would take forever to scene cut them manually. So thank you, Resolve, for giving us this option. Hit change, and it's gonna set the settings of your timeline according to these clips that came in. Then what you wanna do is you select everything in here. So now we have everything cut up. Now we're ready to go to the fun stuff, guys. We're gonna go in and we're gonna start grading, and I'm gonna show you techniques that are gonna blow your mind. This is what's used in the industry. I'm not gonna give you any fluff, anything that you do not need. This is a hyper crash course that's gonna take you from zero all the way to somebody who can make some money. My goal is to make you employable, not to teach you all the nonsense that you're not gonna use. My goal is to show you the meat, so tomorrow you can start with your personal project, and a week from now, you'll be so comfortable that you're gonna be hitting up everybody on Instagram and LinkedIn and applying for some jobs. And then if you get something, you're gonna nail it. I promise you that. So what you wanna do here is you wanna grab all these clips, Command A, I grab all these clips. If you're on Windows, Control A, I right click on any of these clips and I choose the top option. It says create new timeline using selected clips. And then once I do that, I name it, the music video is called Next to You, and I'm gonna call it Next to You from Resolve. So we're gonna be grading in Resolve, but it's gonna be getting assembled back in Premiere Pro. So that's why we're gonna do from Resolve. Once we do that, the timeline is created right here. And then let's go to edit and let's make this full width and see everything is here. I'm gonna play it back really quick and just see how everything plays out. Everything is looking great. We are ready to jump in the color page. So on the media page, what you need to know is that on the left side, this is your Finder. This is your browser in Premiere Pro, okay? So this is basically all the hard drives and everything and where we're pulling everything from. Anytime there's a folder or something that you access all the time, you can just drag and drop them in your favorites. So then you have them available right here. I highly recommend using this feature. Right here, you can, anytime you see this little guy arrow down, that just means that it will take this part and make it all the way down full screen. So if I click on this, look what it just did, and then it pushed everything over. So yes, in Premiere Pro and Avid, you can just have free floating windows and things like that. But guys, don't feel restricted because they give you so many options and they keep everything so streamlined that this is growing on me, guys. This is a very clean way to work. So I'm gonna minimize that. And now what you see on the right-hand side is that this is right now working as a source monitor, okay? So anything that I double click, if I double click right here, I can play it and now it's playing this guy right here. If I double click right here, it's playing what's already been imported. in my project. On the right-hand side, this is really cool. So right now we have audio selected. If I turn off audio, if I just don't care about the audio, I can turn that off, and now I can see my metadata and I can see what's going on. So this is a 1080p footage stereo, Apple ProRes 422 HQ. So I get all this information. How long is the clip? All that good stuff. If I want more room here, I can just bring this up and keep it nice and clean. You can change the size of your thumbnails right here. Moving on to our edit page. Most of the same stuff is going to transfer over here, but a couple of different things. So the left-hand side, just like any other editor, Premiere Pro, Avid, you got your source monitor. Right side is your record monitor. Simple enough. Besides that, what you need to know here is obviously timeline is the same as Premiere or Avid. On the right-hand side, just like your effects control in Premiere Pro, you have your effects control. It's called Inspector, just like Final Cut 10, I believe, and it's on your right-hand side right here. Anything that's activated is going to be white, rest is going to be gray. If I click on it, I can buy myself more real estate and I can hide the inspector. In this case, I want to leave my inspector on. So it's by default set to video, and there's a bunch of different things that you can do. I mean, you can select this clip and you can change the zoom, whatever have you. The stabilization here is unreal, better than Premiere Pro. And it's available right here, even lens correction, which is really useful. If you're working with GoPros or something like that, just hit one button. This is a magic button, it'll fix it. You're gonna be blown away. Audio, you have certain things available, like you have your EQ and stuff already available right here. You can make some quick changes without dropping in any other effects. An effects library, if you wanna pull in some effects, if you wanna drop something on here, transitions or whatnot. But again, I'm not gonna get too much into it. So that's about it on the editing page. Very self-explanatory, like you have all your tools, main tools right here. And other than that, it's just like Premiere Pro. Very, very simple, very intuitive. But the best thing about it is that look how fast this is. That's about it on the edit page. Let's jump into the color page and let's get going and get excited, guys, because you guys are going to be seeing some stuff that's going to blow your mind and your life will never be the same. Pumped? Let's go. Let me just go through a couple of the menus so you get familiar with that, and then we're going to jump right into color. I'm just going to tell you some quick things, what's happening here, but that's about it. We're not going to touch base on that until we put it to use. So gallery is where you're going to be saving your stills. Power grade is, if you have any power grades, they're going to be showing up right here. And then LUTs is all the LUTs that you have. And if you want to audition anything, you can audition them right here. And if I double click on that, like you can see, it's applying it right there. If I double click on that, it's applying it there. And the beautiful thing in Resolve is that you can hover over and it'll give you a live preview. Let's move on. So the top right menu, this is also very useful, very amazing. So now you start off with clips. If you're going to be working on one screen, you have to turn this feature on, clips, so you can see all your clips right here. And you're going to need them because if I grade something here and if I want to apply it to this shot, I need this so I can middle click and apply it. And Open Effects is all DaVinci's effects and any other third-party plugins or whatever you got. So right now, if I'm not going to be using Open Effects, I can just hide it and just buy myself more real estate. I'm going to be starting my grade on this clip. So this is the main area where the color takes place and everything that we do. Okay, good. We're ready to color. The first thing that I'm going to teach you that's going to blow your mind, and nobody will ever share that with you, would be lock down your node tree. Let me show you what I mean by locking in your node tree. So what I'm going to do is that my top node always is going to be for noise reduction. Why? Because I want to send the cleanest image possible. So eventually, if I want to do secondaries and pull keys and things like that, it's going to be the pristine image, cleanest image, and I can easily do that and have the best results. Second layer, I'm going to bring it down, is going to be for my primaries. And then I'm going to have a curves node. Then I'm going to create another node and I'm going to pull this down. And this is where we're going to do our basic secondaries. And then this is going to be just an additional node if we need some more assistance with our secondaries. Then we're going to move down. This is going to be our vignette, and then right click on it, go to your add node and create outside. And then the last node is going to be global adjustment. This is the secret sauce. Basically what's happening here is that you can make your image look like anything at the end. If you want a teal and orange look, you can create it right here without messing up anything that's happening here. If you want to drop some LUT and mess around with it and see what it does, you can do it right here. If you want to give it a film look with that soft contrast, you can do it right here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start naming my nodes to kind of give you a better understanding of what's happening and what's going to go where. Now, I would do a lot more nodes and I will approach it differently if I'm grading something, a commercial or something like that. But once again, guys, the focus of this video is on color correction. If you are new to color grading, or maybe you've done it for a year or two, but you don't really know how everything works, you need to master color correction. It's always color correction before color grading. Color grading is the Hollywood movies or commercials that we see that has like this crazy look and we're all like, what makes it that? What makes it that is somebody spent a whole lot of time perfecting his skill as a colorist to get to a point where that person can take the liberty to start creating looks. You really need to nail, I cannot emphasize more how important color correction is. After what I show you, it's not going to look basic and you're going to be blown away what we can do just with fine little adjustments. Okay, we're ready to color grade. I'm going to start off with my primaries. So I go to this layer and I start pulling my lift right here, this guy. I'm going to start pulling that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to open up my scopes. One thing that I want to do is let me just take you through this really fast and what's happening. Okay, so scopes. Don't get intimidated. It's not that hard. Scopes are pretty easy. Let me just break them down for you. So left side, this right here is your RGB parade waveform histogram vector scope. People who work in Photoshop understand what this is and this is. These two are more for video. So let's just say if you're not working with the $5,000 monitors, if you're just working with something consumer level, this can get you that guarantee that you're in the ballpark. The rule of thumb for Rec 709 is that I want my blacks to be as close to zero as possible and my highlights touching the top as close as possible. Doesn't need to go all the way. When you're talking about Hollywood movies, a lot of the stuff is sitting right in the middle, and that's why we have so much detail in the clouds and, you know, so much detail in the shadow and all that stuff. So there's no right or wrong. If you like to keep your grades in the middle, it's okay. I did a commercial for P&G for the Olympics a couple of years ago, and the DP that I worked with was very specific how he wanted it, and all our colors were sitting in the middle, and he was super stoked. But you have to start playing by the rules first before you bend them or break them. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna start bringing my footage down, and now what's happening is that it's getting to a point where I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. That's looking okay. Now I'm going to take so I'm going to start with lift and then I'm going to pull up my gain. I'm just going to keep my gain somewhere around here. That's not too bad. Okay. So now we expanded that whole thing quite a bit, which is pretty good. And it was pretty simple. So first you do lift, then you do gain. So now what I want to do is, because he's an African-American gentleman, I want to pull him out. And to pull him out, I'm going to have to lift my gamma right here. And look what happens. I'm lifting my gamma, so he's coming out. That's good. That's what I want. And now I'm going to bring down my lift to compensate for what I just did. So color correction, the way you want to look at it is that it's just a game of balancing. You increase something here, you decrease it here. You increase something here, you decrease it here. Got it? If you just nail this concept, you're already better than 70% of the people out there. The next thing that you're going to do is grab your saturation right here, this guy, and crank it. Crank it. Just crank it. Like I'll just go all the way 100%. Now you can start seeing the picture, what's happening right here. So the blues are just kind of going off the chart. And so how do we attack that? Right now, don't worry about that. I'm going to go right here in curves and I'm going to start adding some contrast and pivot. I'm going to be using these two guys, okay? So go ahead and start cranking that to the right, crank it to the right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pivot and crank it to the left. So what's happening, left brings him out. And if I go down, it'll bring him down. So I want to kind of come up like that. I want to open up my contrast. So I'm going to go to left a little bit. And I'm kind of happy with that. Let's disable this node on and off. And you can see that we're adding quite a bit. It's not bad at all. Now what I want to do is I want to go back in here in my primaries and I want to bring my gain down because I feel like I'm losing some of the information. So I'm going to grab my gain and I'm going to bring it down. That's the dance that I'm talking about. That goes the ping ponging. It could be between the nodes sometimes just to like really keep your image pristine. So this is looking pretty good. So now that I'm happy with my contrast in the shot, now I'm going to start balancing my shot. So let's start with offset. And what offset is that it's going to do a blend of everything. Okay. So offset is like we're just going to be affecting all these with one wheel. So I'm going to take that. And what I want to do is there's a lot of blue in here. I want to take out all the blue. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go in the opposite direction to take out the blue. Okay. So let's just start going in the opposite direction. You can see everything is looking good now because the scopes are the proof. So now you see how everything is balanced. The highlights are pretty much at the same level. There's still more blue in the shadows, and we can tell because look at this. There's more blue, so we got to pull the blue in the lift to balance it, and then this cast is hopefully going to go away. So now in this case, what I'm going to do, you have to analyze your image, and that's the name of the game. That makes it so much easier. Once you know how to read your image plus scopes, game over. Now that I see that my highlights are balanced, my mids are pretty good, now I just need to focus on my lift. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to go in the opposite direction to blue. Good. Although the image is not looking right, my shadows are looking good. Don't worry about that. You know why? Because now we're going to adjust our gamma. So what I want to do is I want to go in the opposite direction of yellow. Right now, there's a lot of yellow in here. So I'm going to go toward blue. So now you see, now we got our highlights down, we got our shadows down, and we're looking pretty good on our mids. So that's not bad at all, okay? I mean, we have come a long way. This is a lot of work that we got done. Everything is perfectly balanced. We're right in the middle. Vector scope becomes very important for balancing as well. You got to make sure that most of your graph is right in the middle. And that's a good indication that everything is well balanced. Now what we want to do is we're going to go to our secondaries and I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm still not liking how much blue is embedded in the shadows and in the dark areas. So to get rid of that is super simple. I'm going to show you an amazing technique that's going to blow your mind. So what you want to do is you want to go to hue versus saturation and select blue. We know that it's the blue channel that's causing that problem. And this is what I mean by analyzing your image and just kind of critically think about it for a second. Okay, look at all the obstacles. What do you have to tackle? And once you just look at the image methodically and just spend 2 seconds, then that's it. You get all your answers. And then at that point, boom, 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 like all the work is done for you. Okay, so now I'm in my saturation and all I have to do is right here, this guy. So I've already selected blue and Resolve puts in feathering around my blue. So it's going to be very gentle. And then I take my saturation and I just crank it down. I go to the left and look what's happening to the image. Again, guys, being gentle is the name of the game. You remember what I said? Be gentle and aggressive at the same time. You don't have to. If it goes all the way, that doesn't mean that's what you need to do. Like, this is enough. Like, look what it did. It just took out all that gunk. It just made it look really cool and clean. And that's what we were looking for. Another thing that I want to do, if you can just focus right here, you will see what I'm talking about. If I punch in right here, you are going to see some of this weird yellow gunk that's happening in the highlights. And that's what happens when you're using cameras that shoot 8-bit image and the highlights get like really, really ugly. So to fix that is super easy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this amazing technique, and it's called Luma versus saturation. Is that darkest part, if I desat that, it's going to pull all the saturation out of him. If I desat right here, it's going to pull all the saturation from the top, and top is the problem. So instead of just doing direct down, I'm going to click on this guy, which is going to drop a keyframe right here to isolate everything after that point, meaning it's only going to affect the whites and leave everything else as is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead in there and I'm going to start pulling this down. And right about here, it went away. So now if I punch in and if I show you, you can see if I go back, guys, this is subtle, right? This is going to make a huge difference right here. This looks subtle, but these are the little nuances, just these little tinkering, like little things that you got to do that just makes the world of a difference. That's all I wanted to do with my secondary. So now I'm going to go to my vignette layer. So we never had to make any adjustments for the look adjustment node, which is totally fine. Just leave it there. If you want to come back to it ever, you can make adjustments. But for now, we're good. I'm not even using noise reduction because that's going to bog down your system, and don't use noise reduction unless you have to. And since this is outside and it was properly exposed, I don't have to. Now what I'm going to do is create a window. So just click on that and whatever is activated is going to have a orange square around it. And then this is what we're going to do. We're going to make our window look like this. And then we're going to go around 24, 25. Resolve likes a lot of softness, so don't be shy. And then we're going to invert it. So we're going to click on this little guy, which means that now I can go in here and I can just pull my image and I just grab it from the middle and I'm going to bring it down. And then I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up. And this is looking pretty realistic. The best part about it is the next node that we created, the outside node. This is the real magic because you pretty much have to just do the opposite that you did on the other one, but don't go that far because then you're going to give away the gag. So I'm going to grab it from the middle or maybe a little bit lower and I'm going to pull it. So see, I'm pulling them out and I'm going to leave it somewhere around here. So just look what we did, how much we pulled them out. And it doesn't look extra. And if you want to control that, you can just drop another one right here and kind of pull it down like that. So then the whites are intact. But don't ever create bunch of keyframes next to each other in here because that's what amateurs do. And you start cracking your image. You start breaking your image. You just have to be gentle. In color grading, everything is gentle. Just look at how much I popped them out. So look, these two nodes are doing a lot of magic because if I turn them off, look how it is. And look at my focus now. This is unreal. And you can see in the graph right here how much information we were about to pull, because if I turn off these two nodes, look how flat the top is and then how much more detail is coming in. So then we're going to go to our global adjustment. And now at this point, all I want to do is I'm going to be using my contrast and pivot again. I want to give it some extra pop like that. And now you guys understand what I meant by you have that last node. You can just make some cool little adjustments at the end. If your director is like, that's a bit much, you can just take it off. But in my case, I think it's perfectly fine. I'm going to leave it in and we are done with this shot. We started from here. We are here. And this looks pretty good. And it was really easy. And we handled all the problems that we had. Since I don't want this video to be 2 hours long, I'm going to color correct 2 more shots, but I'm just going to walk you through it and I'm going to speed it up. When you go to a new clip, you can middle click on the shot that you just finished and it's going to copy over the nodes along with all the information. If you just want to keep the nodes and not the information, there's a handy little option right here that I'm going to show you. It resets what's inside the nodes, but leave the node structure intact. So we're pretty much going to be doing what we did in the last shot. The only difference in this shot, there's some lens flare action happening, so it's flatter than the last one. One thing is always good to keep in mind is that you don't always have to push your contrast all the way to the top and the bottom. The more you practice, eventually you're going to start getting a feel for when the image is just sitting in the right place, and then you can just leave it there. I can't stress enough that primaries is where the most of the heavy lifting happens. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull some of my blues down just to get rid of this gunky color in the shadows. And I see little yellow artifacts in the highlights, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of that with my Luma versus saturation. Let's create a nice vignette. And after the vignette, I'm just going to pop my subject out a little bit. That's looking nice. And in the global adjustment layer, I'm just going to use my contrast and pivot to just add a little pop. This looks pretty good to me. Moving on. Now let's pick a shot with our female singer. Unlike how we've been pushing our contrasts on our dude in the previous couple of shots, we're gonna go easy on our female talent and have a little high key action going with her skin. So what I'm noticing in this one is that there's a lot of magenta and red. So I have to really get in there with my gamma, with my gain, and pull that out. Remember, color grading is all about the balance. And that's it. I think I'm pretty happy with that. We're done with the color page. Let's head over to the delivery page and look at some important options. So the thing that you need to know in the delivery page is that Resolve already has some very useful presets. Most of the time, clients will ask for ProRes and H.264. So let's select ProRes. And then one thing that you need to do is click on Advanced Settings and select Force Sizing and Force Debar. And once we're done here, let's go select a destination where we want to dump the stuff. I'm going to save that and let's call it Next to You from Resolve ProRes Master. And now let's add that to render queue. Now the second version is going to be H.264 and that's for web. Guys, this is the sauce right here. Don't select automatic. Go ahead and select manual and then type in 80,000. This is the reason why if you go and look at my YouTube videos, they look super crisp in 4K and just almost look like there's no compression applied to it. This does that. It retains a lot of the information. Now that we're done here, let's add this to render queue as well and hit start job. And there you have it. We got both of our files ready to go.